Hey, Lacey, thank you for joining me.
I have to say, I would be remiss if I didn't thank you right off the bat for empowering me and also my family, my husband and my kids, and helping us parent in a peaceful way, giving us the tools that we need to all stay connected while managing difficult behavior.
You're welcome. What was your philosophy on parenting before, and how was that working for you?
My husband and I really believe in empathy first parenting, which of course means connecting with your child about how they're feeling in any particular moment. I mean, good or bad, really wanting to establish that strong attachment. So, connection with their emotions, empathy, and also strong attachment to their caregivers. So, those are always our principles. We just really wanted to make sure that we were acknowledging our child's emotions. When my eldest son, Hunter, whenever he was really frustrated, our focus was to empathize with them and help our child navigate through those difficult emotions. The real challenge for us came in when we struggled to have our son shift from those emotions. We really didn't have any tools to help him shift away other than a time in together, which sometimes seemed to really accelerate the situation or accelerate his emotions. Empathy first is great, but empathy alone wasn't working for us. It wasn't helping our child shift, and we risked being permissive parents walking on eggshells with our child. So, Samantha, pairing psychology and also a basic understanding of neuroscience, what's happening in a child's brain, what parts of the brain they spend the most time in versus what parts of the brain we spend the most time in as adults, was a real game changer for my family and I.
I think you've spoken to that really beautifully, that you are focused on attachment, on a strong bond to caregivers, on helping kids feel safe, on helping their emotions feel validated. And of course, that's a super important piece of the puzzle when we're raising little human beings. And some parents find some popular methods that focus just on gentle parenting or exclusively on empathy first parenting, is there can be some missing pieces. So what did you find were some of the missing pieces when you were navigating life with your family?
And empathy first parents' intention is to always empathize, but it gets harder when you don't really understand what is triggering these big emotions, chemically what's happening with your child when they're tantruming. So understanding that kids spend a lot of time in the lower brain or that primal brain, and that it's impossible to access that as a parent with logic. When we spend time in the upper brain or that prefrontal cortex, that can actually make the tantrum worse. I mean, that was a really valuable piece of information to have. So just understanding how to go through the repatterning to calm the fire in the brain, paired with empathy first.
Yes, we lead with emotional acknowledgement and validation because we want to create space for those feelings to occur. What can happen as a contradiction is that if we're talking constantly, like, I see you're mad, and we don't hit when we're mad, and I know you're really upset, and you could say, I'm upset, mommy. When you're using too much language and over teaching with logic, it actually triggers more stress and more frustration and some resistance and behaviors with kids.
Yes, absolutely. That I really noticed was happening with Hunter. His favorite phrase was stop talking or enough talking. I was overloading him with logic, even though I was saying it in a gentle, calm, regulated way. It's still triggering the fight or flight response instead of just taking a pause, using that repatterning so he can calm his body down, calm his brain down, and then we can and have a conversation with logic and teaching later on, but not right in that moment. So even though you're using empathy in the moment and you have the best intentions, that can unintentionally be triggering for your child. So that was a big piece for me, is that I was inadvertently triggering my child when I was just trying to be empathetic and kind. That was really backfiring. I think that was also causing him to double down on whatever big emotion he was experiencing because there was still a disconnect there.
Right, right. I can picture you in those moments with Hunter where you were naturally creating a container with him. You're spending time you're being present with him. And what you learned, and I remember the email that you sent me was like, oh my gosh, this was one of my missing pieces, setting the firm limit and setting the boundaries.
Yes, the resources that are out there in popular culture right now, I think that there are some really well-intentioned professionals who really believe in empathy first, but it seems like empathy only. I mean, that was my interpretation of a lot of these popular resources. Some of those sources talk about creating the container or doing a time in as well, but they don't mention the additional steps, the additional tools. They didn't have the context surrounding what's happening in the child's brain. Unfortunately, that can also mean inadvertently triggering your child, and that can mean being at risk of permissive parenting because all you're doing is empathizing. You're not helping your child shift. You're not setting firm boundaries and rules. We need to have clear guidelines on what the right ways are to set those boundaries. I really felt empowered and I felt confident in setting those boundaries, which is a real shift for me. I had not felt confident in creating firm rules and limits with my child. I hadn't done that for years because my child is so strong-willed. I'd get so much pushback, and then I felt like setting boundaries would just at odds with one another because I would just get a lot of tantrum in return. Knowing the right way to establish boundaries was instrumental. Family rules was really the game changer for us. I also have a younger son. I have two boys. Coming up with those firm rules really ensures that everyone's boundaries are respected and that the home is a place of refuge for everyone and not a place of chaos.
Could you speak to what the emotional process has been for you from feeling like you were failing and then to where you feel now?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the resources out there now really focus on the parent digging deeper into themselves to make sure that they show up for their child in a certain way. That's the huge challenge of parenting. We're all going to face that every day. But I think that when it's really just on the parents, the hope that the child begins to model the exact same behavior, I think that could work for some kids. It really depends on the type of child. For intense children or strong-willed child like I have, we had done empathy first for years. We had not seen that shift take place in my son. So, which again ties back into that neurological component. There's breathing, there's physical movement, sensory activities, all that ties into the calm and the fire in a child's brain and then helping them shift in that behavior versus just doing a time in together and waiting out that tantrum with talking, which majorly backfired to me too. That just enraged my son. Did not work.
I started my career as an autism specialist and speech language pathologist. I remember when kids would have tantrums in front of me, I remembered how important it was when I found the missing piece from synthesizing all this literature, brain science and play therapy and mindfulness and sensory integration. It was like, oh,
it's incredible.
Thank you. Whether a kid has autism or they're strong-willed or they're gifted or they're twice exceptional, whenever you see behaviors, it's because adrenaline and cortisol is overactive.
Yes.
So when you look forward, we all have goals and dreams about how we want family and parenting to feel or how we want to do right by our kids so that they have certain opportunities. What's possible for you now, having a fuller set of tools in your parenting toolbox?
For me now, what's possible is spending entire days or large blocks of time with both kids. Whereas that just wasn't really possible before because there was such intense sibling rivalry and I couldn't help my son shift. For me, that was a real low point for me because that is not what I imagined motherhood to be. I love my kids so much. I want to spend as much time with them as possible. I work full time. When I'm not working, I want to be with my kids. And so that was something that was really sad for me that I just felt like the three of us were just not compatible together. Or when my husband was there, when all four of us were together, to just feel like we were on eggshells because there was so much sibling rivalry and just not being able to help my eldest son shift when he was dealing with difficult emotions.
I think about the question that I hear from parents. Am I doing something wrong?
Yeah.
Is this ever going to get easier? Is my kid just going to grow out of it? Now that you know what you know, how would you answer that question?
Yeah, I think parents really need to stay motivated. I know this is hard with a lot of pressures that parents face. We have so many demands on our time and attention, and now understanding that parents are responsible for a lot of social emotional growth with their kids, whereas previous generations of parents didn't focus on that. So there's a whole confluence of things that are pressuring parents. I think it's really important for parents to just focus on their journey of seeking the right information. If you're watching this video, you are taking a huge step in the right direction. I think because Samantha's background as a clinician with an understanding of neuroscience, what's happening in kids' brains, plus psychology, I just think that's a really cool combination of knowledge that can really cover you on a lot of fronts in a way that other parenting resources are more limited. The way it combines all these different parenting methods has been really helpful. It's empowered me to realize where I'm making some mistakes or how I can shift my parenting without being ashamed. That's really key too. It's really nice to come to an environment where there's a wealth of information from diverse background knowledge and also not feel judged, to really be a part of a parenting community and hear about other parents' experiences and hear that you're not alone and that parent and child can work together. It's not all on the parent to create a positive family, a great family.
Yes. I never think a parent is doing something wrong. I think that probably the resources that they've been exposed to and failing, not that you've been failing. So
that means a lot. I really appreciate that. And I agree. I agree. Looking back at the journey that I've been on, I'm so glad that my journey has led me to this positive place so I can feel empowered. But there are a lot of resources out there that fail parents and we are on our own. I mean, until now we can be part of a community together and learn. So
thank you. It's lovely to see your devotion. I've devoted 19 years now to supporting parents in creating more peace at home. And it works when there's devoted parents like you. So truly, thank you for showing up. Thank you for your devotion and sharing your story here.
Absolutely.